All right, so I think I've had this BMW M3 for 2 weeks now, maybe getting close to 3 weeks. And this is going to be the second time that I'm lifting it up in the air, and I'll explain why. Alrighty, so these are the most likely the original 140,000 mile 7-year-old rear brake rotors that came on my car when I bought it. And the fronts had been replaced on this car by the previous owner, but I could tell just from a visual inspection that these rotors had seen better life. You can see just how deeply grooved they are, and if you can tell from the photo or from the video here, you can see just how much rotor is worn out. There was a little bit of vibration from them. I just didn't trust them, especially with the front ones being new, and I wasn't sure how old the pads were. But when I looked up how expensive these rotors are, and these are the standard steel rotors, and this is just coming from somebody who's never had this type of a car before, these rotors, brand new, are anywhere from $300 and up. I've seen some for $400, and then of course there's some crazy fancy ones that are like a two-piece rotor that you can spend ridiculous money on. But just to get a new rotor was going to be about $600 to $800 for a pair. So what I figured that I would do is I found a guy who's parting out a car who had a 20,000, I'm sorry, it was like a 40 or 50,000 mile wrecked F80. I think these also are the same on the F82, and he had rotors that in the photos looked really good. And it was $200 for a pair, and I figured I would get those. However, as you can see, I have already installed the correct rotors on the passenger side here. These were the rotors that I got, and they didn't look so bad until I actually put them on the car, and I'll show you on the other side what the problem is. But you can see these really aren't any better. They haven't been worn as thin as the other ones, but they are still just as grooved. There's a groove right here on the inside that's really prominent, and then there's a groove on the outside here. So these were a problem, and it's the same on both sides really. Whatever pads were on this set before were obviously worn too thin, and just wait till I show you the other one. The good news is, what I have liked so far about my German car ownership experience is that they're not that difficult to work on in all reality, which is something I was nervous about. Everything you see right here is all that I need to actually remove and replace these rotors. Obviously this is for the wheels. The two bolts on the back of the caliper assembly here are 18 millimeters. So here I am with a 1/2-inch drive, 18 millimeters, just a regular 6-point. I've got a wrench here just to kind of speed up the process. Once I've broken the bolts loose, it's just my process. You don't have to have it. And then to get the rotors off, this is a, I don't know if I can read the size, Allen key. Of course, it doesn't have it on there, but it's a pretty standard size Allen key. To unlock, there's 2 screws on the rotor, and then basically everything slides off and goes right back on. So that part is actually pretty easy. All right, so now that the wheel is off, you can get a little bit of a better view of what's going on in the wheel well here. Now, I have already purchased and installed brand new BMW OEM brake pads. I didn't go with a crazy aftermarket street set. I just wanted to find a good OEM pad. I figured an M3 has good brake pads from the factory. I don't plan to track this car, so I wanted something that had good balance, and there's nothing better than OEM. So I'm not going to go through the whole tear down and install on how to put these on. There's plenty of videos for it, but while you're here, I figured I'd build up some confidence that it's not hard. So these are I forget what you call this special kind of load on the caliper here. But if you've ever worked on Brembos or anything like that, they are pretty much the same. I think these actually are made by Brembo, but really all you have to do is there's these 2 pins right here, which you just want to take like a small punch and like a rag or something like that to try to keep from scratching the paint. But you basically push these 2 pins all the way through and out. This little bracket usually falls out right here, and then you can actually just pull out these brake pads. They literally just pull straight out. And then it's basically reverse assembly. It's a good idea to clean everything while it's out. So I did degrease and polish down all these pins and stuff like that, just to get the old brake dust off. And then you basically you can use the old pads with your hands to just push the pistons on each side of the calipers back into their fully open position. That way when you put the new rotor, or in my case, the first case, the pre-owned rotor, put that back in with the pads. That way everything fits back together well, and then you can go out and bed them. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and own up to a mistake of mine, because if I've got the camera here long enough, someone may already mention it. But I actually have these rotors incorrectly on the left and right side. I'm not sure how I missed that. I originally, when I had put these on, had laid them out in what I thought was the correct order, but it was late, and I don't know what I did. But if you look, these the holes for the drilled part of the rotor are facing the wrong direction. Now, I only had these rotors on for a couple days, and I'll show you. I've already done a visual inspection on this rotor to find out the real problem. So once I get it off, I'll show you what the real issue is. So just ignore that. I'm obviously going to put the new rotors on the correct way, but just wait till you see this one. All right, so here are the new rotors installed with the caliper back on, and in all reality, this has maybe only been 5 minutes since I stopped the recording on the last part of the video. Literally, it's just the 2 bolts on the back plus the 2 screws here. Everything slides off and back on. So honestly, really easy to do, and as you can see, that's the proper orientation for that. So yeah, those look fantastic. I think they're gonna ride a whole lot better. So here's the one that came off of it. So much like the other side, we still have the same grooves going on here, a deeper one up here towards the top, plus a little bit of small thin grooves elsewhere. Not too bad. There's a little bit of pitting here in the rotor where you can kind of see where there's been some etching or something over time where, you know, something's gotten in there and chewed that up. But on the other side, this is the problem. So you can see there's a lot of fine grooving in here, which again might have settled in a little bit once the pads had bedded in correctly over time. But the big problem is right here. So I had never actually experienced this before in my life, but when I heard the sound that these rotors were making, I figured I would check it out, and sure enough, these are cracked, or at least this back one is. So you can see it starts right here, and you can even see the difference on the rotor material as there's been a little bit of like a popping, sliding sound as it's going over. But you can see it's cracked here, and it goes all the way up through these. So this could have been a potential problem if I had left it. All right, so before I put this all together and call it a night, I am going to do the most inexpensive mod you can do on these. I don't even really want to call it a mod, but that little switch, all those wires in that box right there, that is the control box or control valve, whatever you want to call it, for the electronic cutout for the exhaust. So this still has factory exhaust all the way through. And honestly, it's just way too quiet unless you're in sport mode or something like that. And what you can basically do, and that's what I'm getting ready to knock out, is I'm going to flip the car on, put it in sport mode, unplug that so that the baffles stay open, and then I'll just, you know, tape off all the wires and stuff like that. So the exhaust valves will be open all the time, and the obviously stock exhaust is not very loud at all, but at least I'll get a little bit more of that straight six turbo noise out the exhaust. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll put it all back together.